Okay, so on to rendering. In this section, what we're going to be doing is covering the shading of our character for the main part of it. We're going to be using subsurface scattering shaders for the body and for the interior of the eyes. The other stuff is going to be basic setup with just standard blend shaders on the board and the shirt and the shorts, and also for the reflection or the more clearer part of the eye we're going to be using the foggy shader, which is very good for specular highlights and reflection and stuff like that, and it gives a really nice high glossy feel. So before we move on to doing any of that, I just wanted you to have a quick look at the scene that we've got here at the moment. I've just brought in my own camera, so that's just done by going into the create menu, cameras, and I've just created a standard camera, and I've also enabled in the camera settings the resolution gate. That's all I've got, and we've got a resolution of 1920 by 1080. For the renders, we'll probably do them a bit smaller until we come to the final one. And also, what else I've got in this scene? I've got an environment sphere, as you can see there. If it highlights, let me just turn the texture off so you can see. So I've just brought in a polysphere, and what I've done is I've applied an environment map, so to speak, or basically the material is a surface shader because it doesn't have any specular properties and stuff like that. It's just purely flat diffuse. And what I've done, I've mapped an HDR image, but it's a convolved image, and what that means is it's been blurred out basically just to keep the brightness and colour properties, just to light the scene. So there's no detail actually in that. All we've got are the light properties from the pixels that are in that image. We've also got a directional light in the scene as well. Let me just go back to there. So there we go, there's our directional light, and that's set to an intensity of 1. And in shadows, I've got ray tracing shadows turned on, and we've got 12 in the light angle and a value of 15 in the shadow rays. And what this will give us, a nice sort of softer ray trace shadow, and tends to make things look a lot better. And also in the background there, you can just about see. If I just come out to my 4 view again, there you go. You can see through here we have a spotlight acting as a slight rim light. And what I might do is just turn the intensity down once we start to get going and stuff, because once we do our first render, we'll bake the light map out, and then we'll freeze the light map, so we haven't got to keep recalculating as we go through the tutorial. So without further ado, that's a pretty straightforward setup. I'm sure most of you can do that. The convolve map we'll supply for you as well, so you can use that to test your own images and stuff. And okay, so let's get cracking. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to sort out the textures for the shorts and the shirt and also our surfboard, and then we'll see where we go with the renders for that. So just going to close that off there like so, and what I'll do is we'll graph the top material just so we can see what we're doing. And if we just go up to the color channel here for the material, and we'll just nip off to our directory and pick up our textures. So we want to go to work, the Simply folder, our alien, final maps, and what have we got? We've got our top selected, so we want our top color like so. If we go to a let's go to the perspective view and just bring this up a bit. So as you can see, there's it's pretty straightforward flat texture with our Simply logo on it. So that's done, and what I'll do as well, I'll just hit 3 on the keyboard to smooth that out. And also we'll do the shorts as well. So let's go to the shorts, and we'll hit to the color, navigate to our file folder, and the shorts color. I'm not going to add the bump in at the moment because in the next chapter what we'll be doing is the displacement mapping, and then once we get the displacement map sorted, then we'll put the bump map on just to finish everything off. So that's all done. Let's just have a quick scroll down and look at our specular settings. The specular is quite high here for these, so I'm just going to bring it right down just to keep it sort of more of a flatter colour. If you want, you can make some specular maps and stuff for these, and we'll do the same on the top. There we go. So that should suffice for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick render, and if we go to options, test resolution, and at the moment we're on 960 by 540 for the actual 920 by 1080. That should suffice for now. So let's do a quick render, and hopefully that should go alright. Oh, actually we'll do the board as well. Nearly forgot about the board. So let's do that. We'll just bring in the textures for the board. Let's go up to the color channel and file and board colors. So I'll open it out, and let's just zoom out in this window. There we go. You can see our cool texture on there for the board. So that's all done. So let's come back out, and we'll do a quick render of this as it is so far. So let's hit the render button and see how we go. So what this will probably do now, this will probably calculate the whole light, which is what it's doing at the moment. It's calculating a light map, and it's sorting out all the lights in the scene. So as you can see, it's very, very bright at the moment. So what we'll need to do is just sort of tone that down. That's just 15 seconds for that render, so that's pretty quick. So what I'll do is, if we just go to our outliner, grab our spotlight, and we'll just tone that down just a little bit, to about 0.9, and we'll do the same with our directional light. We're not going to be doing anything fancy with the lights for this tutorial. It's really just about the skin setup for our characters. So let's do that, and also let's grab the board and just check that shader. Again, make sure the speculars aren't too high. Yes, they are. Hence all this sort of white burnout that we're getting as well. So I'm just going to turn the reflectivity right off there. Okay, so let's just keep those right down. One little bit of specular. It's a surfboard. So let's do another test. So we'll throw that one in, and we'll do that. So we've adjusted the lights, so it'll need to recalculate for this piece in particular, and that's a little bit better. And what I think we could do is just tone down the HDRI map. We can adjust that in its color gain. So again, that one was a little bit quicker. That was 14 seconds. So it's good to get quick render times and sort of get a decent sort of quality image out. So let's go to our environment sphere, and actually let's name that as well. I prefer to name it up in the channel box. So let's call it ENV underscore sphere. So that's done, and we'll just freeze the transformations on that so it's all zeroed out, and delete some history. That's done. So back to its shader, and if we just go to the out color and we just have a scroll down, it's very, very bright anyway on some of this, but if we just have a scroll down and we go down to color balance, we can just adjust it slightly just by adjusting the color gain, just to bring the density down, take that brightness out a little bit. Okay, so that's done, and what we'll do, so that's how we're going so far with the render. So we're a second quicker on our second render, and let's see what we get for our third one. So again, this is going to calculate where we're at, and hopefully it's not going to be too bad. So again, that's toned down. We can start to see the sort of blue appearing up in here, and let's just have a look. So yeah, that's the difference between those two from our first one as well. So I can probably just bring that down just a little more, and we'll pop that in, do a quick render. So it's rendering nice and quick, even for a 960. That's pretty good with ray trace shadows as well. So that looks fine to me for now. So we've gone from that to that to that. So we'll leave that there for that. And what we'll do, we'll hide the surfboard now. So if we just select all of that and do Control H on the keyboard, and what we'll do, we'll zoom in to our character now, because this is the more important part of the tutorial, is to get the character done with the subsurface scattering and everything on the skin. The surfboard, it's quite a wide object anyway, so you know the light that goes onto it's going to spread right across, so that will need won't need a lot of adjusting, but it's just sort of little minor tweaks. So let's get a render out now of our character. So let's do this. So that's calculating for us, and then what it will do, it will actually render the image now. So the final gather points have calculated and it's rendered. So that's popped nicely. So what I'd like to do is we're going to start adding the subsurface scattering shaders to it. So let's get back to our mental array materials, and we'll have a scroll down, and let's just go to the graph and clear graph like so. So let's have a scroll down, and we'll choose the misfast skin shader. So there's one, there it is there, and we'll just name this, we'll call this body underscore M for material, and let's just zoom out, just get rid of that a minute, and let's just come up here and make it nice and big, and we'll make it another one. And this has now come up with this dialog box, and what it's doing, it's asking us if we want to use the same light map that this particular shader is using, and the answer is yes, we can use the same light map, so just do use selected. Okay, so that's all good. Right, and what we want to do with that one is name that underscore eyes and underscore M for material. Okay, so that's all good to go. So what I'd like to do now is apply those shaders to the character. So let's grab the body one and right click, assign material to selection, and as you can see our character's gone red, and this is pretty much a default sort of colour for the shader in any sort of view when you come to do rendering and stuff, or excuse me, see textures displayed in the viewport. That's pretty much all you're going to get. So if I hit 5 and then if I hit 6 in texture view, that's pretty much what you're going to see. There are scripts out there. I know there are a couple floating around on SimplyMaya that do allow you to see your textures in real time for a subsurface scattering shader. So just be worth looking those up. Just ask around for a few of the members, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you. Okay, so moving on, let's do the eyeballs. So I'm going to open up the outliner and choose our alien guy, open up his eyeball groups for his left and right eyes, and I'm going to select the inner eye. Actually, that should be called inner eye RT, and the outer eye RT as well. That's where we've duplicated the eyes across, and I've not renamed those. Slap on the wrist for me. So let's grab the inner eyes, left and right, and again right click on the shader, assign material to selection for those eyes. So that's hopefully put that on there. Let's just quickly zoom in and have a look. So there we go. So that's the subsurface scattering on the eyes. Okay, so the other thing we need to do now is if we grab our outer eye, as you can see there, and let's just delete some history on there, still got some history left over. Outer eye M material. So what we'll do is copy the name, which is Control C to copy, and what we're going to do, we're going to scroll up and we're going to just choose a Fong E shader from the list that's underneath it. So that's going to change the whole property of that shader, and what we're going to do, we're going to put the transparency to maximum, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to put the specular all the way up to white, and then click on the specular colour and type in the value 1.5 like that. So it's going to really increase the intensity of the white, and we've got a bit more here as well that will also help that with the whiteness colour, but I just usually put a value, extra value in on the specular colour. Okay, the highlight size, which is obvious, so up or down to make it big or small. We're going to go to about 9.8 for now. So when we come to render the eyes, we'll have a nice specular highlight on those, and the roughness is the roughness of the highlight around the edges, so it kind of breaks it up a little bit. So I don't know if you can see it very well on the screen there in the video, but it does go quite rough, and I'm going to put that up to 1.5 as well, just to give it a bit more. So hopefully we're ready to render there. And I think one more thing I've just seen, what we need to do is give the tear ducts a shader. And again, what I'd like to do is give that another Fong E. So let's just scroll all the way up in our Maya shading, and there we go. There it is there. So we'll grab that and we'll name that now. So we'll call that tear ducts _M. So, and what we need to do is apply that as well. And the colour and everything we're going to leave for now. We'll just assign the material, and then once we get a render of our skin and stuff, we'll choose a nice part of the skin that will hopefully sort of go with the tear ducts, so that all the colours sort of match in and around. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. Okay, so that's done, and I think what we can do now is we can do a render, and then we can start to attach our textures that we created in ZBrush and Photoshop to the rest of the character. So let's crack a render out now. So let's just choose that window and hit the render button. So what we've got to do really now is get the different layers of skin into Maya now for the subsurface scattering shaders. And what I've done is we did create the textures within ZBrush, and what I've done is I've created three separate files of the skin shader and adjusted their color intensities. And what we can do is we can apply those to three different subsurface scattering layers in the shader, and it will help us achieve sort of like a nice color. So there's our render. That's done. So let's just zoom in. So he's not bad. He's looking fleshier than what he was. Now we've got the skin shader on there, but he's also looking a bit waxy and probably a little bit plasticky. So what we need to do is adjust the settings for his skin, and what we'll do, we'll start on the body, of course, which is the main part of this. The eyes will do last in this tutorial. So let's just move to there. So we've got that selected, the misfast skin Maya body _M, and open up the subsurface scattering parts of the menu and in the attribute editor. And the first thing that I really want to do is lower the back scatter down to almost 0. The back scatter is the colour that if you put a light behind him and turn it up quite a lot, you'll see red coming through, like the blood in the skin. We haven't really got a great deal of features on this guy. He's quite featureless, even though we try to keep him as interesting as possible in his facial features. He hasn't got any ears. He's just got like little stubs with holes in. So for me, for this particular exercise in this tutorial, I'm going to drop that right down to 0, because we've got no reason to be using the back scattering, because we're not really lighting it in such a way where we want to see through the fleshy bits of ears, because we just don't have those objects or properties there to use. So we're going to drop that right down to 0 for now, and you'll probably see a change in the colour of the shader as we do this. It's just gone down a little bit. There we go. It's just starting to grey out. The other thing as well, the updates on the shaders do take a couple of seconds to do. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the overall weight on the specularity. So I'm going to hit that to 0, and that one's updated a lot quicker. What we're going to be doing, if we have a look here in the specularity, let's just scroll this down a little bit more. In the specularity part of the attributes for the shader, there's a lot of settings just to do your specularity. I have recently found out that there's a little node that you can use, a mental ray node called a data conversion node for the color intensity of the specular, and it just allows you to plug in this node into this attribute here and just control your specular through one command through this intensity node. And it's really worth just setting that up, and it just saves all a lot of hassle. Just keep balancing backwards and forwards with this stuff. So everything's just basically coming off of the black and white specular map that you've created. So that's one thing worth noting. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the diffuse color, and what we're going to be putting in is one of the skin textures that basically the skin texture that we created in ZBrush, but it's a more desaturated version, and we'll have a look at that as we go, and yeah, we'll start applying that first. Up here we've got a thing called overall color. We're not going to be putting anything in there because what that does, the overall color, you can put color map in it if you want to, but what that will do is it will block out any of the sort of subsurface scattering attributes below it. So if you think of that as the uppermost color, and all these other color channels, these are all sort of like the layers of the skin. This one here would be like if you were to put, I would say, if you were putting like a makeup or something on, that's what that channel would be for. So if you were creating lipstick or eyeliner or something like that, that's the channel that would go on, because what that essentially does is blocks out any of these surface scattering attributes that you'll happen to do for the character's skin. So that's just something to be aware of. You can use it, but just be aware of what it does. It will block out any subsurface scattering. Okay, so let's go to diffuse color. So let's open that out, and what we want to do is go and find our diffuse color for the body, and just scroll up. So it is called body color diffuse. There it is. So we'll open it up, and I'll just show you what it's doing. So let's just open up Photoshop. You just hit the edit button there within Maya. Underneath that, you'll launch your photo editing software, whatever you use there. There we go, and there it is. So there's our map. That's our main color map. So this is our diffuse map. So you can see it's a lot more desaturated than when we originally created it in ZBrush in one of the previous chapters. So what I'll do as well, while we're here, I'll open up the body color epidermal and also the body color subdermal. Okay, so now you can see the difference in all the maps. So this one's really our sort of surface color. The epidermal is the one that's going to be generating the actual color for our character. This one's going to contain a lot of the surface details, whereas this is just kind of but it'll be under the first layer of skin, which is the part that does actually give you all the color in your skin. It's the same with real skin, which is why it's called the epidermal and stuff. So if you go and check out your skin layers and stuff like that on a Wikipedia or something, it will tell you why. And this layer is very desaturated. I've blurred it out as well, because really that's going to be like blood and little bits and pieces and saturated other parts underneath the skin that will be actually below these two as well. So that's done, that one's in. So let's go and jump back into Maya. So we've got the color diffuse in, and that's going to have a weight of 0.3 as default, which is fine for now. And what we'll do, we'll go and grab the epidermal now, which is, if we go back to Photoshop, which is this one, this guy here. So we're going to go and grab that, and we're going to throw that one in. So let's do that now. So we'll go to File, and the color epi, I've called it epi. Open that one up, and that's in there. So we'll do those two maps for now. Let's see how that goes, and what we'll do a quick color render, and then what we'll do, we'll freeze the light map, we'll bake the light map for now, just so we get quicker test renders, pardon, and we can get that done. Okay, so we're leaving everything as is, other than that. So we're going to get quite a flat looking guy now, but it's not a problem because we'll be controlling the speculars and stuff like that later on. Okay, so let's do a quick test render and see how we go. So let's just select the window. Okay. So also for the next chapter as well, while we're waiting for this to render, I'll just give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do. In the next chapter, following this one, we're going to be setting up the displacement maps for the shirt and the shorts, and it's basically going to be 16-bit as we export it out of ZBrush, and we're going to be using an expression to control the height of the actual displacements, because because it's 16-bit, it doesn't actually have like a real world scale when you create it, so it's kind of like a lot of sort of hit and hope really as we do that. So it's a fair bit of trial and error just to get your values right, but we've got a little expression we can use as well, and we'll put that in. So our render's done. Let's just have a look at this guy. So he's not bad, so it's 36 seconds, so it's not bad at all. So there we go, he's looking pretty good. And what I'll do is we'll go up to the render settings, open that out, and we'll turn on freeze, so we haven't got to worry about that now. And what that'll do is it won't have to keep recalculating the lights now. Now we've got our skin on our character, so that's good. So I'm just going to minimize that for now. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our epidermal scatter color in there, and it's got a weight of 0.5, which means it's like these weights, they're like an intensity for those particular colors to come through the skin, and the scatter radius is allowing how much to give it that sort of subsurface scattering. And at the moment we've got a scatter radius of 8, which means that the skin is actually quite thick. So because we're using centimeters in this particular setup, and our guys around, I've done the alien to about 3 foot high. So if you've done something similar, then you should sort of have the same sort of settings of what I've got here. But what we'll need to do is sort of decrease this stuff as we go along. So I think we'll probably take that right down, and we'll probably boost that up possibly just a little bit, not much, and we'll probably have a look around at these as well. We'll drop that. So I think actually what we could do, we could actually do that now. So let's grab the scatter radius and we'll drop that down, so let's half that, so that's pretty good, and see how we go. So did that change at all in there? Let's have a quick look. Let's go back to 8. So that's still relying, I think, really on this colour, on the subdermal at the moment. But we'll hit 4 anyway for there, and what we'll do, we'll store the image, and we'll do another quick render. So really, we're just, like I say, we're going to be concentrating really on the renders here for the skin, and we'll see how we go from there. So this is taking its time now for the next render, even after just freezing out our light map. That should be a bit quicker than that. There we go. It's still recalculating it, unfortunately. So I will have to do that again. There we go. Let's have a quick look anyway. So from that to that, you can just about see the brightness going on in there. So we've halved the scatter radius for the epidermal colour, and that's actually made it look a bit better as well, so it's brought out a little bit more shape. Okay, and what I think we'll do, if we increase the weight of that as well, that will increase the colour of that particular part of the skin shader. Let's just jump up here to our render settings, and I did do a freeze on that, and what we'll do, we'll put in alien.fg map. If we put that in, so we've now got a proper map for it to read off. And what I'll do, we'll zoom out and just close that off for a minute, and we'll do a quick, we'll place that in there, we'll do a quick render just so we can build our light map back up, and then what we'll do is we can freeze that, bake that light map, and then hopefully that will just keep reading off of there, and we won't have to keep recalculating every time. I know we're using a bit of tutorial time up here, but it's worth it just to see what it's going to be doing, I think. And hopefully it should pop. There we go. So that's recomputing the final gather points. There we go. So that's good. And what we'll do, open up our settings, we've got our FG map in there, and we'll freeze that out, so that's done. So hopefully this time we come to render it should be a lot quicker. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in the subdermal scatter color. So let's open that out, go to File, bring that in, and body color underscore sub. So let's open that. Okay, so that should be in there. And what I need to do as well, we're going to turn off the filter types for these as well. So let's just go in, because these are, we don't want to blur our textures, which is what this does. This will blur your textures. And we'll do the same with the diffuse color. And we'll just go up and turn that off as well. So we should get a nicer looking texture. And there we go. You can see what that's done to this just by adding the subdermal scatter color. And what we need to do is, I think, if we do a quick test render, now that's in, so hopefully this should render a lot quicker. It's thinking about it. So I think that's just recalculating. That's not actually doing anything at the moment, so we should probably have a look at that. Oh, it's actually rendering it, so there we go, it's worked now that we've frozen that out, so that's good. Okay, so that's another 30-second render. That's not too bad. So if we go back, there we go. So you can see the colour on that has started to shine through, and that's very pleasing. We're still keeping a slight sort of scattering sort of look even in this colour, so I'm pleased with the way that's working out there quite well. That's good. Okay, so what I need to do is we're just going to adjust a few of these settings as well. So I'm going to half that like so, and the subdermal scatter weight, I think what we can do is if we drop that down, we'll half that. Actually, let's do 250. No, let's do 220. Let's just over half. Okay, so we'll leave that there. And the diffuse weight, I think what we could do, we could drop that actually as well. I think if we do 250, let's just do that a little bit. And then the epidermal scatter weight, actually we'll leave that. Actually we'll leave those well alone now for those two. I think that's pretty good to go. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's do a store of that. Let's store that one and just hang in there just for a second while this renders, because it's only 30 seconds and it's really not worth me pressing that pause button. So we should be good to go. So just let this calculate for a minute, and then we can go from there. What we'll be doing once we've sorted this out, we'll jump in, have a look at the specular settings, and we'll get that data conversion node in there for that, and then you can see how you can control your maps and stuff like that. So that's looking nicer. I like this. This is looking good, even though it's low resolution. So there we go from the other one. So that's looking a lot better. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to store that. Okay, so let's zoom out. And what we need to do now is we're going to start to have a look at our specular. Okay, so we'll just slide down into the attribute editor there just nicely. And what we'll do, we're going to go down to the mental ray tab down here, and we're just going to come down to the data conversion nodes in here. And what we want is this color intensity node. And there you go, that's just appeared just in there. And I'm just going to close that off, and let's just work like this. Let's just rearrange the graph so we've got a little bit to work with. It's all nice and tidy. So there we go. Okay, so this is where we're going to be putting our file for our specular map. So we're going to jump in and do that right now. So we're going to jump and grab a file. Let's just keep this nice and tidy, and let's go and grab that, and let's find our specular, and that'll be around here somewhere. There it is. So let's open that up. Okay, so that's in there now, so you can see the specular map that we did. So that's all now on our inputs here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag this guy over here for now. What we'll do is we're going to middle mouse drag this guy onto him, and we're going to go to Other and open out the connection editor. Now this is a really cool thing that like I was saying, I've learnt recently, and it's really very useful. So what we're going to do is grab the out value, open that out. Now you can use any of these values, it doesn't matter, because we're only looking at a black and white map anyway. So we're just going to use R, it's at the top of the list. And what we want to do is connect it to the misfast skin shader's overall weight, or the primary weight for that for the specular map to jump onto. So hopefully, I believe it will be overall weight, that one there. And the best way to check that is if we just grab the shader and overall weight, that's done. So that's really good. So we can close that off, and we'll just clean our graph a little bit out so we can see it, and I'll just keep that all opened up like so. Okay, so our primary weight for our specular is at 3.3, and that's okay, that's not bad at all, so we'll leave that as is for now. So we may increase it, I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. But what we want to do now, in order to get a better grip on the specular, I think what we could do is add a bump map as well, because that will help us to see what the bump is actually doing, and what the specular is doing, opposed to the bump and the rest of the skin. So we're going to open out the bump shader and go and grab that file, and where is it? And body bump. So there it is, just there, and that's open. So that's good. So that's now in there, and let's just rearrange the graph again. Just keep it all nice and tidy. There we go. So that's good. So there's our eye, outer eye, and our tear ducts, and our skin. That's our other eye as well. So what we want to do is grab our bump, and let's just go to the file node, and we're going to turn quadratic off because we don't want it blurred. And we're going to just go into the bump depth, and we're just going to rearrange that, or redial that down rather, beg your pardon. And we're going to go to 0.03 just to start for now, and then we'll leave that open for the intensity node for our specular. So I'm just going to pop that in there, just double sure I've got one in, and what we'll do another render. And what we should see, we should start seeing the surface of the skin slowly sort of coming to life now, making him look a little bit not so much sweaty, but you know, there's a moisture there for this sort of reptile sort of skin that he's got, and we'll see where we go, and hopefully it should pop. There we go. So the render's cruising through, and hopefully we should start to get a little bit of specular on this guy. So yeah, it's starting to appear now. So if we just go to the previous render, so you can see the specular setting has started to make the rest of the skin pop, as well as having the bump map on there as well. So that's really quite pleasing. And I'm going to increase the factor, which is basically the intensity value of this map. So I'm just going to hit 0.5 on there, and you'll see that brighten up a bit more. So that's great. And I think what we can do is, if we come back to the shader itself, if we come back up to our primary weight, and I'm just going to increase this to about 0.6 on there, and that should sort of boot that up a little bit more. And also, I think for the secondary, even though we've not got one of these nodes in, we can still affect the sort of the layering of the speculars, because they're basically overlaid on top of one another, and so they do work accordingly. But we can get this to give it a bit more of a layered effect. So I think we'll give this 0.5 for now, and just to see what happens. And also the test resolution size, I think, actually let's leave that there for a minute, and what I'll do is, if we go to the render settings, and if we go to quality, and we'll put an anti-aliasing value in of 1, we'll leave the box filter on. People do tend to go a lot for Mitchell, but if you do a couple of tests, bits and pieces like that, you'll find that, well, what I've found, even in production environment, that box is actually a better filter. Mitchell is very good, don't get me wrong, it does look great, but the box filter, you could even drop the value slightly for that and you'll still keep a fairly decent sharp image. The Mitchell one usually comes in at a value of 4, and usually what I've found is to get it a bit sharper is to drop the value down to 3.5 or 3, but the box is good enough at 1, I've found. And we're just going to turn sample lock off and turn jitter on for the renderer. And if we go down to features, we'll put a bit of ambient occlusion into the secondary part of the rendering for our features there, and I think we're ready to go and pop out another render and see how our specular is doing along with our bump as well. So I'm just going to actually go down to the bump map and we're going to decrease it to 0.25, so that's done. Okay, and what I think we could do, we'll store that one, and so it's 31 seconds for this size render, which is pretty fast. So let's see how that goes, and then hopefully what we can do next is jump onto the eyeballs, and we'll do a very similar thing as well, and that should be pretty much it for this part of the tutorial. Oh, we've got the tear ducts to do as well, and we should be good to go. So just wait for this render to pop, it shouldn't be a second. So we'll just wait for this. There we go. So that specular is starting to work quite nicely now, and we've added that anti-aliasing in as well, and we can see our character has pretty much popped there and then in our scene. So that's what it was, and there it is now. So I'm pleased with that, even at that resolution. And what we'll do, we'll keep that there. That's works out very nicely indeed. And what we'll do, we just jump back and we'll go and sort our character's eyes out. So because we're using the same light map as the body, the shader's already there for us while we've been graphing our material. So what we want to do is go all the way back up to our diffuse color, and we'll go in and find our eye. So we'll go to File, and we'll go to Eyeball Diffuse, like so, and we'll just nip up to the diffuse color, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop that value down straight away, because what I want to do is pump it through really with the epidermal scatter there, and I think what we can do is put that up to 0.8, and then I'll just bring in the texture straight away. So as you can see, the intensity there has increased dramatically. So we're going to get our eyeball proper epidermal color, like so. Let me just double check that one. Did I bring in the right one? Yes. And what we need to just get rid of all these filters. For some reason Maya all the textures are filtered when they come in, which is a real pain, because you create these nice high resolution textures only for them to get blurred at render time, which isn't, I can't make hide nor hair of that. So I don't know what's going on there. So okay, so the epidermal scatter color, let's have a look at that. The weight is 0.8. The scatter radius, let's just drop that ever so slightly, I think. Let's do that down to 2. Let's have a look, see what happens there. So that'll be fine, I think. The subdermal scatter color, let's drop that. We don't really need that. Okay, so you'll see that update there. The scatter radius we're not really going to worry about, because it's going to be right inside there. It's not really going to be affected. And the back scatter color for the eyes we'll just do down to 0.1, or the weight rather, down to 0.1. Okay, and we'll leave that like that, and then hopefully we don't really need to touch anything else for those. So let's go in and do a render and see how we get on. And hopefully, if the eyes are spot on, what we can do, we can then end the chapter there once we've done the tear ducts, and then hopefully, we can move on in the next chapter and do displacement mapping. So we'll just wait for this to pop again, so it shouldn't be too long. There we go, so that's started to appear, and fingers crossed that our eyeballs are looking pretty good. And there they are, there we go. Now that's not bad at all. So let's just zoom in and have a look. So our character's eyes, I know this is a fairly low resolution, but that's for the render speed, of course. But that's not bad at all. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, I'm going to leave those actually there. In fact, what we can do is drop the overall weight of the specular on that, because we want the specular on the outer eye to do all the work. So as you can see there, we're picking out the indentation there. So I'm going to hit that, go to 0, and what I'll do, we'll do a quick selection render just around here. And hopefully that won't take too long to do. And hopefully the highlight has disappeared from the center of that. There we go. So yeah, the highlight's gone now that we had on the inside of the eye there. So that's good. So I'm happy with that. So let's just go and pick our tear duct, and we'll just graph that material like so. Open that out, and we just go up to the colour, grab our colour picker, and just zoom in a little bit. Whoops, chosen the wrong colour. Okay, so grab our colour picker, and I'm going to choose this sort of colour here, as it's sort of like near to around the eye. So I want to keep all of that part of it sort of like a similar sort of colour, really. So let's have a look at the values there. So 3.5, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that should be okay. So what we'll do is, if we go back and let's do a render of the whole character, and hopefully this should have popped. And what I'll do as well is we can adjust the specular highlight on the character and go from there. And I mean on the tear ducts, not on the body itself, because I'm quite happy with the way that's come out. Okay, so here we go. Good. So let's just zoom in, have a look at the face. There we go. I think the tear ducts blend in quite nicely. We've got a bit of reflectivity going on there, so we can drop that, and the specular colour and the whiteness. The highlight size we can drop, and we'll make that quite rough as well. So that I'm actually going to leave that there. I'm not even going to worry about test rendering that, because that's just going to be a very tiny thing to worry about. So hopefully you've learnt a little bit about the subsurface scattering shader for this part. As you can see, the highlights are slowly picking out, especially around the face. I do like that. That's really giving him some life up there, and we've got a bit of life along the legs and on the feet and on the top of the arms and stuff here as well. So hopefully that's been of use to you. In the next section now, what we're going to be doing is covering displacement mapping and the setting up of a 16-bit displacement map. And we'll get the shorts and the shirt done for that section, and then we're pretty much done with the entire texturing tutorial. So without further ado, I shall see you in the next section. Okay, so here we are, we're on the final part of our tutorial. As you can see here, we've got Photoshop open, and what we've got here are the displacement maps that we generated from ZBrush for our character's shorts and our character's top. And what we're going to be doing is going to go and going to go through a fairly simple process of setting those up. In the past, there's always been this like big mythological thing about displacement maps set up, and the various things that you've had to do, and how to export maps out of ZBrush and stuff like that using the multi-displacement exporter. As good as it was very, very fiddly, and I think what they've done now, they've come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, and it's just made life a lot easier now, and you can just really get your maps, apply those to the displacement node within Maya, and still go through the same sort of thing of attaching an approximation node, so we do actually get the displacement out, and nice and smooth as well. But just generally, they're a lot easier to work with and a lot nicer to work with as well. So let's go and do that. So let's just close these guys off, and we'll jump back into Maya. As you can see, I did a nicer high resolution image of our alien from the last part, and you can see all the bits and pieces, all the detail, the specular highlights. So there's some bits of scattering going on now for the character himself, and let's just zoom out there. There we go. So what we're going to do for this part of the tutorial, I'm going to hide pretty much everything except for the shirt and shorts and our lights and our background, because we're not going to need it for this particular part. So let's go to Command, and we'll go Hide Unselected Objects. Okay, and let's just zoom in, because we're going to be concentrating on these two guys here. And what we'll need to do as well, just going to drop the settings down from that big render that I've just done to show you how our character's looking. So just going to nip into quality, and we're going to put the samples to 1. Features we'll leave as is. That's pretty good. I don't think there's anything else we need to do. Oh yeah, we'll regenerate the map because we've moved out now from the previous position, so that'll have to go back on. And also, if we just go to our render view here, I'm just going to store that image for later on. And if we go to options, we go to test resolution, we go to our render size. At the moment we're on 1920 by 1080. I think what we'll do for the displacement setup at the moment, actually let's go back to 960 by 540 like we did in the previous chapter. So I think that'll be good enough for us to do at the moment. Okay, so let's turn the render settings out, and let's concentrate on the shorts for now. As you can see, I've got the shorts here, and let's just have a look at what we need to do. We need to find our SG node for that, so I'm just going to hit up on the keyboard. Actually, let's graph this all over again. There we go, there's our SG node. This is what we need to apply our displacement map. Also, what we're going to be doing is putting our bump maps on to the material as well for the sort of final touch, really, for the material itself. So let's go into the SG node, which is up here, and what we're going to do is go to the displacement material. So let's open that up, and what we need to do is go and find our file in our directory, and our alien final maps. Whoops, wrong one. Final maps. Okay, so we want our shorts. I think we're doing the shorts. We are doing the shorts. Yep. So we want our shorts displacement. There it is. So let's open that up, and there we go. Okay, I thought I was going mad there with what file we were doing. So okay, so that's everything put onto that. Now there are a few other things that we do need to do in order to get the displacements to work a bit better. One of them is, excuse me, although the shorts are smoothed in our render view, I think you'll find it's always a good thing to actually go in and add some more divisions. So if we go to Mesh and Smooth, and let's have a look. Okay, that's pretty good, I think. Let's have a look there. So let's smooth that, and I'll just hit F in this view, just have a quick look, just make sure everything's okay, and I believe it is, so we're all good to go there. Yeah, sometimes you need to just check your settings with your smoothing, but that's all looking pretty good to go. And just by adding an extra level just helps the displacement a little bit more, even though we've still got smooth on, but the geometry is fairly light anyway. It's nothing drastic whatsoever. So that's all good to go. And also the other thing is, when we come to the next volume of our alien character, which is rigging, this is going to help us weight these a little bit better as well when we come to painting weights. So it's best of both worlds. And okay, so let's move on. So we've got our divisions in there. Let's just delete some history off those. Right, so we've got the divisions, we've got our displacement. So what we do need to do now for this is actually create an approximation node, and this is just going to help everything tessellate and smooth and everything for the final render. So we're going to go down to mental array, approximation editor, and we're going to go down to subdivisions, poly and sub-D surfaces, and just hit create. Okay, so we've now got an approximation node in our scene, and as you can see, it's popped up here on the attribute editor. The settings are it's kind of a personal choice really, and what works best for you. In the past, I tend to use spatial, but it can be a bit of a killer on render times. I mean, I was using that on a lot less spec machine than I am now, but there's still a slight grind there trying to calculate this stuff. But this is a good way of doing everything. But for this tutorial, we're going to use parametric, and we're going to use the end subdivisions attribute up here. And what you can do is, if we look at this value here, 2, that's its default value. What this is, the more you increase the value, the more sort of finer, if you like, your material does actually become. So let's say, for instance, a value of 2 is, just as an example, is a heavy canvas type material, or Hessian. But if I were to say put that on 5, that would be silk. So the higher you go, the thinner your material would essentially be. So I think for these type of shorts, we'll do about 3.5, which should be pretty good, I think. So that's on there, so that's all good. So I'm actually going to put that onto 3 right now. So that's all good to go. And there's one last thing, because I think I mentioned in the last section, because we're using a 16-bit displacement map. 16-bit displacement maps don't have any real-world scale baked into them. So with this particular map, if you were to use a 32-bit, floating point and all that kind of stuff, no problem. It would just you wouldn't have to do what we're about to do next. But what I found with those is, again, it's a render time thing. So for this exercise, what we're going to do, we're going to make a little expression, and we're going to put that expression into the offset value, and what that's going to do is enable us to control one value and adjust the other value at the same time, so we haven't got to keep typing in and halving, because the way that Maya reads blacks and greys and all that stuff as opposed to ZBrush is totally different, so we have to get it to work to push and pull the blacks and the whites accordingly within the scene. So let's crack on and do that now. So we're going to do a small expression. So what we need to do is, there's our displacement. So we want to go and find our little file, which is called file 18. Just make a note of that, what that's called, because you're going to need that to put into your expression. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into the alpha offset and also make sure alpha is illuminance is on. That's always worth doing. Otherwise it's just not going to work. And what we will do is we're going to type in a small expression now. So I'm going to put equals and then minus, and then we want the file name, which is file 18. So it's file 18. Then we want to put a dot, okay, and then we want to put alpha gain. So alpha, and then gain with a capital G, and then space /2, and then semicolon at the end there. So, and then hit enter, and if that's right, that will go purple. So there we go. So what we've told it is the value of this is half of this each time, and depending on the size of your scene, you may need to increase or decrease this in value. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do a quick test render. I'm just going to check our settings once again. So we're going to leave that on that. So that's all good. Quality we'll leave there at 1, and we will go from there. Okay, so let's do a test render of this scene. I think we'll need to recalculate it actually. Did I turn off the rebuild? I think I did. Let's go to indirect lighting. Yes, it's back on. Rebuild is back on. Okay, cool. Okay, so what we can do is go in and we'll shoot a snap of this and see how disgusting the displacement map looks on this value at the moment. So let's go. So I'm just going to hit that now, and it may take a moment. Oh, there we go, it's working already, so that's pretty good. And as you can see, the displacement is already beginning to work, and that's not actually too bad, even on that value. It's probably a little bit lumpy, so that's rendered that out really nice and fast, which I'm quite pleased about. So that was 19 seconds for that displacement. So as you can see, it's a little bit bumpy, stuff like that. And what we can do, it's probably pushing it out a bit too much and stuff. So all you need to do is begin to play with the alpha gain value, and the alpha offset will adjust itself because of the expression that we've put in. So let's put in a value of, let's do 0.8 for that, and then we'll watch this half to 0.4. There we go, so that's done. What we'll do as well, I think, is do a quick snap of that and then back up to our render settings, and now we've got the FG map rebuilt. We can put freeze on again, so hopefully the render will be even quicker. So let's do that, and we'll just pop that in there, and we'll do another render. So hopefully this shouldn't take as long as the last one. So here we go. So again, we've decreased the value there for the shorts, and let's just go back. So there you go. You can see already the difference that's made between those two values. So I'm going to decrease this again to about 0.5, which I think is going to be okay, I think, for this, and we'll drop that one in there, and let's do another render. So there we go, that's not bad at all. So that's a render time of 10 seconds for that size displacement as well. So we've gone from that to that. So I think that's pretty good. Could probably use a little bit more in the actual approximation. Let's go and find that somewhere in here. And if you can't find it, the best thing to do is go up to, let's select the shorts, there we go, and that's done. So if we grab that, and we'll just increase that value just a little bit, store that, do another render, and already it's nearly done. There we go. I think that's looking better already. So hopefully, yeah, that's beginning to pop a bit more. Good. And what I might do is actually increase that even more so that the resolution is actually better. You can tick this box here for fine tessellation, but I'm doing this for speed because obviously we've got to get out. I don't want to be sitting all day waiting for the tessellation and then the render to go. So I'm just going to increase that just up to 4 for now, and again it's rendering nice and quickly. Oh, and as you can see, that's sort of starting to go a bit funny down there, so that's probably too much. So yeah, that's too much now. So I'm going to drop that value to 3, and let's just have a look with fine on. Let's just see how long that does take to do. and we'll drop that in there, because that we were getting a bit of a dent there that wasn't ideal, looking a bit untidy, so that's not too bad. So there we go. And what I'll do, I think we'll go with it from there for now. That's looking pretty good even at this resolution, so that's good. So we'll keep that there, so that's fine. And then what we need to do now is we're going to do the same thing with the top, and we're just going to bring him down a bit like so, and we'll graph his material. We'll grab the SG node and we'll go and attach the file itself for the shirt. So as you can see, the pain really of setting it up is nothing at all now. I do recall a couple of years back with displacement maps, really very fiddly. Even the amount of information there was on them was still very, very good, but I think it was just still dependent on how machines and stuff were at the time. So that's done. Okay, and the other thing that I didn't actually do for the shorts, I don't think, was under displacement. It was turn off feature displacement so we get a better render. Usually it doesn't render with that turned on, so we'll have a look at that again very shortly. And let's just do the same while we're here for the top, and then again for the mesh, let's do a smooth, so that's all nice, so that we've got a bit more divisions there for the actual displacement. Okay, so that's our file. And let's grab that and go to Window, Rendering Editors, Mental Ray, Approximation Editor, down to the subdivisions here, and hit Create. So we've got that in there again. Parametric, just going to leave it on that. That seems to be working quite well for us. I'm going to hit 3 for our material. We'll just hit Fine as well. And what we do need to do is we need to write that expression again for our color offset. So again, it's going to be equals space minus then your file name, in which case it's file 19, so file 19, then it's dot alpha, and then capital G for gain, and then space /2 semicolon, and then enter. That should go purple, which means that we're ready to go. Okay, so let's do a test render. I'm going to have to, because we've moved the camera again, we'll just quickly recalculate the scene for the light as well, just to be on the safe side, nothing too drastic, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. Let's put that on, and let's just go from there. Okay, so another render. Let's pop this one in, and let's do a test, see how our shirt comes out. And again, I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a sort of similar effect to what we had before. As you can see, the final gather points are computing again. So look, the shirt's all bloated, quite simply because the value here is too high. So I think we'll just do what we did for the shorts themselves. So let's go back in and bake out or freeze out the map like so. That's done. And what we're going to do is I'm going to drop this down to 0.5 straight away for this, and we'll store the image and do another render. So hopefully this is going to be a bit more balanced and it's going to be a bit more sensible for the whole scene. And there we go, that's starting to work already. Probably still a little bit lumpy. Could probably do more divisions and stuff in the actual ZBrush file, and probably a little bit of smoothing we could do, but again, generally this is the sort of thing that you want to do. I'm going to drop this down to about 380. Okay, so again, that expression kicking in and helping us with our alpha offset as well. So let's just check. So we've gone from that to that, which is a lot more sensible. And also let's store that image and hit render, and then hopefully we should have a much better looking shirt. The other thing I want to do is just drop the color gain very slightly for the shirt itself. There we go. I think that could come down just even more. So yeah, let's do some finer looking wrinkles there. So let's do 280, I think, for that. Let's just come out to the actual file for the top itself. I'm just going to drop the color gain a little bit just to darken it, because both of these are looking a little bit burnt out. So I'm just going to drop that back just a little bit, and we'll do the same with the shorts as well. And again, with the gain, the color gain, we'll drop that down, and what we'll do, we'll just zoom out just a little bit, open that up just because I've adjusted that again. Okay, like so, and let's do a render and see how we get on. So hopefully this is almost done, and should give you an idea how to start with your displacement maps and stuff with this. What we'll do now is, there we go, that's much better. So that's really done the trick with that. Even though it's not fully rendered yet, that's looking a whole lot better. So it's more natural looking. So I'm gonna, no we won't, we'll leave that for now, actually, the render settings. And what we'll do is we'll go into the top and we'll go and grab our bump. So this is going to be like for the final sort of look for the clothing. So again, for the bump maps that we created in one of the previous chapters, we're going to go and grab, so we want the top bump. So let's open that up, have a look. Okay, so that's come in there now. Let's just rearrange the graph just to keep it all nice and tidy. There we go, that's the network. There's our displacement node. So we want the bump node, and we're going to drop the material right down to 0 to 0, like so. And again, the filter type, turn it off, we really don't need it to be put on. And for the shorts, let's go and grab the bump map for that. Let's just turn it off now while we're there, and go and get the shorts, bump, open up. Okay, and again we'll do the same value, 0 to 0, and that's done. And we'll do a quick render, and hopefully we should start to see a bit of difference in the material. So this is going to probably render a little bit slower now. There we go, you can start to see the graininess in there from the material. So it's starting to render a bit slower because of that. Let's have a look and zoom in and see. So if you can see the noise in there. I think if we go in a bit more, just to have a look, and we'll do a render again, we should be able to see how violent, if you like, the bump has become on there. And hopefully we may not need to adjust it. So let's just wait for the final gather points, and then we should start to be able to see what the material is doing. And already there, even with it not properly done, you can see the fabric coming through there on the bump map. I mean, we could have used a normal map, but I think for this, bump map is perfectly adequate. We're not doing real-time stuff or anything like that. So, and there we go. So as it renders out, you can start to see the fabric within the material there. So had our anti-aliasing been a little bit higher for the character, for the clothing there, we would have been able to see that from the offset. So there we go. So it's just 54 seconds really, just for that. That's not bad at all. So what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom out, and it goes to Command, Show Last Hidden, bring our character back, and we are pretty much done with this tutorial. Just one last thing, let's just take the specular down on that. I'll keep noticing that. Nothing drastic, so let's just turn that right down. There we go. So that's pretty good. There we are. And what we'll do a final render for this. Whoops. No, we won't. Yes, we will. Okay, so let's see where this goes. I have a feeling it might be the wrong view, but we'll have to wait and see while this calculates. and hopefully the whole character is going to be in there, and we should have a nice subsurface displaced character. The other thing we could do, or you could do for your own projects, is do displacement for the actual character itself, for the body, just to add that extra detail. You could do that around the muscles and stuff like that, and it should be pretty good. So there's our guy as he's appeared, and let's just wait for the rendering to complete, and there we go. So there he is. There's our final character with his displaced clothing and stuff like that. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and you've learned something about the displacement mapping and stuff like that. Have a play around with it, see what works for you. Any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to give us a shout at SimplyMaya. You know, we're always willing to help people out. I mean, that's why we're there. And of course, there's a very, very good and friendly community there as well that's willing to help out anybody of any level. And yeah, so check it out if you get any problems. Thanks for joining us on this, and hopefully we will see you in the next volume, which is going to be the rigging of this guy. Really generally just for posing, but we will set it up in a way that you could probably use it for animation as well. But really we're going to be using it to pose the characters up, just in case you want to do still scenes and stuff like that, because not everybody is an animator, but sometimes you do want characters to be in different poses and stuff. So hopefully we'll see you in the rigging section. Thanks very much.